Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Story Hour. I am your host, Daniel Marcus. My co-host is Laura Blackwell. She has a night off. My other co-host is Cliff Winnick, and he is here. And I hope that you are all safe and healthy and taking care of yourselves and taking care of your loved ones. So this is going on 4 years now, Story Hour. I started in the heat of early COVID lockdown, and my intention was just to find or create a space for my writer friends and I to get together and share our work and just kind of sit around the campfire and have some community in kind of a weird, spooky time. And you know, 4 years later, we're still going strong. Shortly after I started, Laura joined me as a co-host, and she has far better social skills than I do. So she managed to really help build this out into a pretty sprawling community of writers from every corner of the broad tent that is speculative fiction. So it's been a real privilege. We see wonderful work go through these rooms every week, and we're just delighted to still be here. The way it works is really simple. I think of it as one of the oldest forms of entertainment in human history, which is folks sitting around the fire telling lies to each other. And many millennia later, we are here doing exactly that. So tonight, we have two writers, J.A.W. McCarthy and Dave Ring, joining us. So welcome, both of you. It's our custom to ask authors to indicate a worthy cause for us to call your attention to. And if you're fortunate enough to be able to help financially, do that. Otherwise, just be aware that these causes are out there and spread the word if you're so inclined. So Dave is reading tonight for Collective Action for Safe Spaces. That's www.collectiveactiondc.org. And the mission of this organization is to make Washington, D.C. safer for everyone. They do that by preventing public harassment and assault in all public spaces, but on the metro in particular, making bars and restaurants safer spaces, sharing stories to raise awareness and to spur action, advocating for policy change, training anti-harassment activists, and engaging men in the movement for safer spaces, basically rethinking masculinity. So that is collectiveactiondc.org. Please check them out. J.A.W. McCarthy is reading tonight for Seattle Area Feline Rescue.org. They're located just north of Seattle, and they're a nonprofit no-kill rescue. They take in homeless cats and kittens. They give them the care they need to recover and find them loving homes. During a typical year, 2,000 felines find homes and through people visiting their Sorfit Adoption Center and by other means as well. So there's an extensive network of community volunteers, foster families, and they help the rescue mission carry out its work and to save more cat lives. That's another great cause. So please check them out, Seattle Area Feline Rescue.org. And in the hubbub, trying to iron out a couple of technical glitches, I forgot who's going to go first. So is that Jen? Okay, cool.
Yeah, sure.
All right. J.A.W. McCarthy is the Stoker Award and Shirley Jackson Award nominated author of Sometimes We're Cruel and Other Stories, Cemetery Gates Media, 2021, and Sleep Alone, an Off Limits Press in 2023. Her short fiction has appeared in numerous publications, including Visterion, Pseudopod, Split Screen Volume 3, Apparition Lit, Tales to Terrify, and The Best Horror of the Year, Volume 13, another Ellen Datlow production. She's Thai American, lives with her spouse and assistant cats in the Pacific Northwest, and you can call her Jen on Twitter at J.W. McCarthy. Find out more at www.jawmccarthy.com. Jen, welcome. Take it away.
Thank you. So today I'm going to read a story that came out a few years ago in Picnic in the Graveyard from Cemetery Gates Media.
Nice.
This story is called In the Jaws of a Beautiful Beast, and content warnings are death, and there's one instance of swearing. So this is In the Jaws of a Beautiful Beast. Every night, this is how it goes. Kelly takes her date. usually someone she met in a bar earlier that evening, to the old cemetery on Butter Hill Road. It's 1 or 2 a.m. They're the only living souls around, and Kelly says it's always been a dream of hers. To what? The date asks, looking around nervously. Stone angels, wilted potted things that used to be plants. Nothing lives or grows here. Even the grass is fake. Teddy bears resting against the littlest headstones, saggy and bloated and faded from the rain. Stone and button eyes stare, judge. Kiss in a graveyard after dark, Kelly says. Don't you think that's romantic? Most states will say one of three things. Heh. Then after a moment, when Kelly doesn't laugh too, really? Or, that's kind of morbid. Or, you're 21, right? This date is a little bit, a lot drunk. Kelly may or may not be. There were an awful lot of beer bottles and rocks glasses, and they lost track of how many Kelly had. The brown liquid in her glass going up and down around an ice cube that never seemed to melt. The bartender didn't card her, but he was especially friendly with Kelly, like he knew her. So she had to be of drinking age, right? Despite her round, creaseless face and all that lace-trimmed black velvet, she's too old to be a baby goth looking for Mary Shelley cred in a graveyard after dark. The date says, so where should we do it? Where should we kiss? Kelly's dark eyes trace old cracked tombstones, intricately carved obelisks, slick granite plaques embedded in the bright green grass. Front doors, apartments for the dead. Brass inlays look like door knockers, and even the little photos of the deceased encased in glass domes look like doorbells. Though Kelly knows every inch of this cemetery by heart, it's still sad and weird and thrilling all at once. They'd all been teenagers at one time, hadn't they? Kissing and fondling and chugging brown bag 40s in this very spot before their own bodies filled the space under the grass. The date would like to think it's the half moon overhead making her eyes shine, but really, Kelly just looks like she has allergies. How about there? Kelly says, pointing to a small marble trim mausoleum. It looks like a particularly gauche prefab shed. On the steps of the mausoleum, they sit close, bodies tilted so that their knees touch. The date's excitement, or is it anxiety, trills through their bones, enough to make their flesh vibrate. If Kelly feels it, she doesn't let on. She smiles in a way that's meant to empathize and comfort. Don't worry, it'll be okay. This is the start of something great. The steps are bitterly cold under the date's jeans. They need that rush of blood, that warm tingle from thighs to belly, if only to keep from going numb. The date reads the name carved in the archway above their head, Fotheringham. How much did it cost per letter, they wonder? How many bodies are tucked away behind that iron-tipped door? The date's done worse, wilder, stupider things for pretty girls like Kelly before. So why does tonight feel different? When they reach a hand towards the curve of Kelly's jaw, their fingers slice wavering trails of pink and yellow through the black night. Maybe they are a lot drunk after all. Kelly leans in. It's just a kiss, she whispers. Those shiny eyes, desire or allergies, it doesn't matter. She wants to kiss. She wants more. They'd be stupid not to see where this night goes. When their lips meet, the date feels everything every date before them has ever felt with Kelly. Anticipation, excitement, anxiety. They worry about the garlic on their pizza that night, the cheap beer that still curdles the sides of their tongue. Self-doubt moves in fast, so they concentrate on Kelly and all the points where their bodies touch, radiating swells of heat through denim and velvet and fingers as they find their way to innocuous connections. Her lips are so soft and somehow as firm as a swollen limb. They have a heavy-bottomed heartbeat, ominous, thump, 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 thump. She guides and leads, and the date relaxes. Kelly tastes like strawberry Tums. Under the beachy citrus scent of Kelly's shampoo, the date smells the sour mealiness of her scalp. It's an animal smell, enough to slick their fingertips as they roam the back of her head. This is a good kiss, the kind that makes them hot and tingly all over, flushed. They're in the jaws of a beautiful beast, gently threaded through slick canines, mine emptying as skin swells and blood flows. This is the kind of kiss that makes them leave their body. It happens so fast. The date is kissing, being kissed by a beautiful woman in a graveyard after dark. They're being pulled up, 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 feet going numb, floating, then shins, knees, thighs. They lose track of their body from toes to throat. All they feel is the heat from Kelly's lips swelling their own lips, her tongue traveling gums that feel itchy and raw. They're nothing more than a floating mouth, all that flesh, a wisp of smoke. Then nothing. Kelly swallows hard and wipes the saliva from her chin. The date's corpse makes a papery whisper as it slides down the steps of the mausoleum. By sunrise, the little greenish-gray husk of a body will be gone. It'll be like all of Kelly's other dates, a wizened once human with mouth and nostrils and eyes and even earlobes puckered in judgmental little O's. Kelly doesn't know what the cemetery caretaker does with the bodies. Perhaps he rolls back that emerald carpet of plastic grass and buries the body atop the coffin below. She's read about how in some cemeteries, in times of desperation like plagues or when encroaching cities ate up all the land, multiple bodies were stacked in graves or even buried standing up. How this was discovered, though, is the only thing that bothers Kelly. None of it matters. The caretaker keeps his mouth shut and digs because Kelly pays him well. After Kelly is done with her date, she could finally exhale. It's a tricky process, releasing the old essence while retaining the new essence she just took. They stack in her stomach as she flexes to move the old one up her esophagus, slippery as blood on her hands or gravy on her chin. The new one wants out too, as if its withered husk of a body is not a burned down house, incapable of shelter. Imagine the diamond hard crystallization of a person, everything they've ever seen and thought and believed and loved, trapped in a corpse, conscious and bored while their home rots around them. Wouldn't it be better to live in another creature, even if only for one night? They slip and wrestle, but Kelly manages to keep tonight's new essence deep in her gut. The one from the night before, the old essence that kept Kelly pleasing and welcome and desirable, stutters up the back of her throat before collapsing with a dramatic huff on her tongue. She inhales deeply, then coughs out a cloud of strawberry Tums. He'd been so nervous, Mr. Strawberry Tums, hands shaking every time he lifted that single bottle of beer. He nursed it all night, placing his hand over the bottle every time the server came by. Just before they left, when he came back from the bathroom, his teeth and tongue were Barbie pink. The new essence needs time to take root in Kelly's body, so she lies down on the mausoleum steps. Sometimes she sleeps here, arms and legs curled under her as she returns to her original form and catches a couple hours in the cool alcove safe from the elements. At sunrise, she won't yet be fully human again, which means taking long strides through the plastic grass to encourage her animal limbs to stretch and grow. In her original form, she's sleek and quick enough to hide from mourners who dot the daytime with their restless grief. Everyone who sees her wants to touch her, but she's the one who punctures their quiet reflection, the somberness, the sunlight. Tonight, it's hard to sleep. There's a lot out there that can kill, and she's vulnerable no matter what body she wears. The best place for her would be deep in the dense woods that border the cemetery. She knows this. She wants to live there, but she's unsure. Though she was born small and quick in a body created to be in harmony with every aspect of nature, Kelly isn't comfortable with the other animals that have made a home in this untouched stretch of land. They run as if there are no limits to their bodies, their territory, their safety. Kelly longs for that kind of freedom, but when she is in her human form among other humans, she gains as much power as she does complications. She's strong and big, and people care about pretty girls who say they're fine walking home alone in the dark. A human form only gets lonely when it doesn't have to work hard to survive. Kelly reaches down to the husk at the bottom of the steps and pulls a wallet from deflated jeans, enough to pay the cemetery caretaker and buy a drink or two tomorrow night. She never looks at the IDs. She doesn't want to remember their names, their faces, that moment when base desire gives way to terror. Her dates know they are vulnerable, yet they still follow a strange woman to a cemetery in the middle of the night. They don't suffer. Kelly wants everyone to know this. She wishes she could tell them, her dates, but where's the thrill in that? It's supposed to be dangerous, kissing in a graveyard after midnight. You're supposed to think about the serial killer on the loose, the skeletal hand that burst from the dirt, the shriveled bodies with all their puckered holes set in sour little O's as they shuffle tattered leather and bones towards you. The next night, when her human form has taken root and she's ready to hunt again, Kelly finds a new date, a beautiful older woman just before last call. Stunning, really, with a crisp-edged gray stripe through her long black hair and alarmingly green eyes. Kelly noticed her immediately, much earlier in the evening, sitting alone at the bar. The woman accepted drinks and ignored suitors the way Kelly wishes she could. A girl can't be picky. A girl's got to eat. Seeming to enjoy it when the men she rejected dissolved into tantrums and name-calling. Elbows out, feet firmly planted on the lower bar rail, she expanded while Kelly receded into a dark, spare chairs cluttered corner of the pub. Tonight's date is small, but even now in this vast cemetery, she takes up space. I walk by here on my way home all the time, the woman says as they weave between stone angels and faux marble mothers cradling bashful toddlers. She moves so smoothly, not at all drunk. How is that possible? Kelly remembers the rocks glasses stacking up, her bartender friend lifting empty shot glasses like thimbles on his fingers. The woman's cruel, dry laugh punctured the predatory aspirations of the room every time a man moved to touch her arm, her shoulder, the small of her back. Laura. She said her name is Laura. Laura. When Kelly says it in her head, she draws out the O sound, slamming it into a firm R. The A simply floats away. Why does she remember this name? She can't stop saying it in her head. She hates herself for remembering, for savoring those soft, round sounds. I've never actually been in here, though, Laura says, swiveling her gaze. She meets the stares of every angel and teddy bear. Kelly would have noticed her. She's sure of it. It's always been a dream of mine, Kelly says. Laura raises a sharp eyebrow. To kiss in a graveyard after dark. This spreads liquid fingers across Kelly's back. There's a recognition in Laura's voice and in her eyes and in the way her nose lifts to test the air between them, an animal assessing its own kind. She should have known back at the bar that this woman is not like the others. No, it can't be. Kelly's overthinking Laura's reaction. This woman is bold and confident, and maybe she's a predator too, but not like Kelly. This woman is human. It's silly, right? Kelly says, gathering herself. She offers her best question mark smile. Touch me. Tell me it's okay. Tell me you'll protect me. I've just never done it before. I doubt that. No one has ever said this before. The dates always give a nervous laugh. There's always disbelief, a comment about her being morbid or weird, followed by the reassurance that that's a turn on. Laura never even asked her age. No, it can't be. Kelly takes Laura's hand and leads her to the mausoleum steps where they sit tilted towards each other, but not touching. Laura's eyes are so shiny, but not drunk shiny, alive shiny. Living things are wet, gooey, on the surface and underneath. Kelly is reminded of this every night when she takes a new essence and is reborn. Human life shudders smooth and muscle thick through her body at that first inhale. Everything tastes bright and sharp again, her tongue against the roof of her mouth, finding a sweetness that breaks the usual limit of salty or sour. Sometimes she presses her fingers into her own creases to feel her skin smooth and expand. Human or not, with Laura, it's different. Kelly goes to make the first move, leaning close, soft focused on those shiny green eyes, her hand hovering over a black denim thigh, but stops just short. It's not a fear of rejection so much as anticipation of what she will feel, because she's not supposed to feel. It's just a kiss, Laura shrugs. Why did Kelly choose her? She could have taken any of the men Laura rejected, given them just enough attention and promised to lure them out here. It's only essence, a little jolt of human life, so it doesn't matter whom she chooses. Desire, attraction, they're dormant, locked away behind a slowed heart and the rope mechanism of a hip sway. It's supposed to be easy, simple. Laura was the one who came to her table while she wasted the night staring instead of hunting. Laura chose her. Did she know then what Kelly is? Just the same as she bought Kelly a drink and asked if she could join her, Laura is the one who initiates their lifelong dream cemetery after dark kiss. She starts with a soft but firm hand, tilting Kelly's chin up, and right away Kelly feels a jolt of nerve-spiked pleasure, followed by self-consciousness. Laura's hair is as shiny as her eyes, but it smells dry and grassy like sweet hay. There's the cold mineral tang of raw meat on her fingertips, so close to Kelly's mouth, a hint of ammonia on her breath. Kelly tastes garlic on the back of her own tongue, and she worries how she smells, how she tastes to Laura as their lips meet. Laura's mouth is firm, all these tiny muscles grabbing and latching, but still soft and pliable despite the hunger. Kelly finds herself relaxing as she thinks of turning into skin again. She's flushed, going numb in the pointy toes of her boots. She can't feel the cold stone steps of the mausoleum beneath her anymore. It doesn't make any sense, but she doesn't care either as she starts to float away. Laura is the one who breaks off the kiss. You ever let it wear off? Just let yourself be who you really are for more than a few hours? Kelly's breath seizes cold in her chest. The last essence, last night's date, the one keeping Kelly in this human body now, roils in her gut, threatening to hitch itself to her next exhale. She thinks of their greenish gray husk, wonders if she and Laura already walked over their resting place. What do you mean? She asks. Laura laughs. Not like at the bar, when the men approached her with their loose hands and expectations. This is a little throat and nasal puff that jerks her shoulders, and oh, sweetheart, dipped in honey, the good stuff, the I see you stuff. You choose these rules, Kelly. There are other ways to stave off the loneliness. So she knows. They are the same. This animal recognition makes Kelly feel naked, prone under the beautiful worldly woman's stare, even more vulnerable than when she is small and bare and dodging the reach of the well-meaning and malicious. Kelly is not supposed to get lonely. Every night, a different life, a new courtship, an intrusive moment of longing that ends in the daylight. It's hundreds of lives, a game that shouldn't feel like one, but does in the moment when she curls into sleep alone on the steps of the Fotheringham Mausoleum. It's not loneliness that she feels. She wants everyone to know this. Oh, sweetheart. What if I go too long? Kelly asks. It's too late to go to a bar, but she could pick up a restless soul at the supermarket, get them back here, steal their essence if she has to. What if I'm not like you and I can't change again? Laura's fingers brush Kelly's knee as she stands, all the way through denim and flesh to the bone. It's like when you blow on an animal's back, a little forest of dense fur parting for the tender flesh underneath. And they don't bite. They don't even flinch. It's just waves of stimulation rolling up their spine. Trust. You think it's two separate worlds and you have to choose? Why can't you live in both? Laura asks. At the bottom of the steps, while Kelly looks on, Laura inhales deeply, her body shuddering as the last essence she took climbs up her throat and roars from her mouth. A cloud of juniper and peppercorns hovers between the two women, bright and bracing as the gin that coated their tongues earlier in the night. It's the scent of every bar, every hunt, every lifetime they have both lived hundreds of times over. Kelly lingers in the scent, thinking of how Laura looked at the bar earlier tonight, how the dim overhead lights caught the sheen of her lips, her fingertips, mirrors making sparks against the cut crystal of a fancy rocks glass. Laura's mouth moves, but she doesn't form words. The wind is a raw animal in Kelly's ears. Because there is no new essence to take root, the change is immediate. Laura slips down to all fours and she's off, clothes torn away, pale flesh turning dark and velvet under an indifferent moon. Sleek, silver-tipped black fur ripples over lean muscle as the mechanisms of blood and bones strike through plastic grass. She's liquid between headstones, gliding over granite plaques, stopping to sniff fallen petals and rain-melted teddy bears because she can. When she looks back at Kelly, Laura's eyes are glassy green pinpoints against the waxing dark. Kelly rises from the mausoleum steps and inhales deeply. Her stomach bounces and hot acid branches across her chest and upper throat. It's as if the essence in her gut knows what she's about to do, that this is their one chance to escape. You have nowhere to go, she wants to tell them. I'm the last home you'll ever have. She feels a pang of guilt, but it's different from the other times she expelled the last dying essence in trade for the new. In the thin tree line that marks the border between the cemetery and the tempting, intimidating woods, green eyes flash and silver edges flex. A moment paused, but not for long. It's like in the bar, except now Kelly knows why she couldn't focus on the hunt, why she couldn't take her eyes off the beautiful woman. Laura, she calls in her head. A howl. No time to think. No way Kelly will give herself the opportunity to doubt this moment, this creature in place waiting for her, assuring her that there is nothing to fear. With a throat-burning cough, she expels the essence, keeping her human into the night air. It's a little white cloud, garlicky pizza, and green bottled beers. Everything is fuzzy but bright. Streaks of movement, trails of pink and white and black even deeper than the night sky in front and behind her. The rustle of those nocturnal animals savoring their freedom, the hollow wind, all the sounds of the cemetery at night intensify as her spine lengthens and her limbs find power and new articulation. Flesh pricks against the cold, then smooths under a pore of warm fur. The fake grass, bright, bright, bright emerald green, bounces under tiny feet that never touch what's underneath. She's a perfect machine of lean muscle and pliant leather and toothpick bones, and the thickest, most luscious coat you've ever seen. Nothing but forward motion towards the beautiful beast that waits for her. It feels so fucking good to run. Thank you.
That was awesome. Thank you so much, Jen.
Thank you.
That was chilling, really beautifully written too.
Oh, thank you.
It's our custom here at Story Hour to just pause between authors, just to take a breath, just to let the story resonate and just get ready for the next work. So we're going to do that. We're just going to take a minute, less than a minute, actually, a few seconds. But J.A.W. McCarthy, folks, thank you so much, Jen. Come on back anytime. Our next author, Dave Ring, is a queer writer of speculative fiction living in Washington, D.C. He's the author of The Hidden Ones, 2021, Rebel Satori Press. That's a great name for a pub house, and numerous short stories. He is also the publisher and managing editor of Neon Hemlock Press and the co-editor of Baffling Magazine. You can find him online at www.dave-ring.com or SlickHop at Twitter. Dave, take it away.
Thank you. I had a small existential crisis hearing Jen read that and almost completely changed to yet another story, wanting to vibe off that kind of horror place. But I'm gonna stick to my my second choice, which is a story I chose because the one I was practicing, I realized I had words in it I didn't know how to pronounce out loud. So this is called The Forked Prophecy. It was originally accepted to Glitter Ship forever ago, right before they folded, and was recently in a brief charity anthology, but otherwise this is the only place it will live right now, so it feels great to share it with y'all. And considering the subject matter, I feel like in addition to CAST, which is a wonderful nonprofit, I'd love folks to also consider the Palestine Red Crescent Society as a nonprofit to support. So this is called The Forked Prophecy. 1. Let it be known that the child to bring the republics as one will greet the dawn with 9 fingers. The owl goddess seemed to hang in the air for a moment, a terrible silent hunter silhouetted against the moon. When she dove, the priestess and I threw ourselves to the ground, never eager to overestimate our worth to her. Shale's hand squeezed mine until the silence was punctured by the goddess's retching. I pulled back, informed by a well-timed premonition, as a divine pellet the size of a boulder thudded against the ground between us. Gabila's bloody beak, I said. Don't swear in her name like that, Shale said, getting to her feet. I'm being literal. Look at this thing. Shale didn't look convinced. As long as you don't claim it's poetry. I snorted. I was done with poetry. The pellet was a withered, disgusting mess. Shale began to poke it apart with her spear while I sweated buckets and swatted away mosquitoes. Her zeal for the task should have been at odds with the delicacy of her visage, but somehow Shale managed otherwise. I found myself somewhat jealous of the attention she gave it. She caught me looking and frowned. What are you looking at, Karis? What are you doing? I asked, ignoring her question. Though I presumed the pellet to be body-sized at first, I should have said human-sized, since that is what the goddess had eaten. The flesh had been digested, but the pellet still held bones and tattered cloth amidst the debris. The bits and pieces of armor were definitely from one of the lion guards that had been pursuing us. You do know one of my sacred duties is divination, don't you? I grunted and hunkered down. So what are we looking for? We aren't looking for anything. I let her push my machete away with her spear haft. She brought us this to show us a sign. I'm trying to find... Oh, there it is. You aren't the only one being literal. She deftly twisted her spear to extricate a gore-covered amulet from the mess. I wiped it on my trousers. The lion be damned, I said, eyes tearing up. I held the royal signet of Austria. The worst must have happened. Olliston, the city of luck, had fallen to the Estrich and their wretched lion guard. And who could blame them? After all, the lion guard general had somehow changed the Umbra of Icefane, a shadow beast that gibbered and devoured our infantry. Shale didn't say anything about blasphemy this time. The baby's cry split the night, and we hurried to her side. 2. Let it be known that the child to bring the republics as one is a second chance. Without her, there is no tomorrow. I bounced incessantly, cooing whatever inane sounds came to my lips as Shale did her best to lure the nanny goat up the cliff. The goat refused to move, just as the tiny prophecy in my arms refused to stop screaming. She'd been fed, cleaned, and afforded plenty of sleep, but still, she wouldn't stop crying. What is wrong with you? If someone had told me that the thing to bring me out of retirement would be a baby and a pretty jungle priestess who wasn't even paying me, well, I would have poured my pint on them. Shale wiped her brow with her arm. You could help, you know. I wasn't talking to you. My tongue was sharper than it should have been. Though we'd only known each other for weeks, the echoes of past relationships had bled into our manner with each other. I set down my screaming bundle in a cranny before clambering down to help. I'm not sure how long we labored, sweating in the muggy air, as the thought of that absent pint tormented me. We tried to push, cajole, and lift the damned creature, but time and time again her hooves persuaded us otherwise. She would only ascend when she chose, and she currently chose not. We yelled until our voices got sore. Something in the sound of our efforts might have pleased the little one. Her screams became delighted nonsense. As she gurgled, our nanny goat condescended to move, picking her way over to the baby with fastidious hooves. It should have been infuriating, but instead we were grateful. Shale and I regarded each other without words. She picked up the babe, and I headed to forage. Our tasks had already become a routine. All of this so that a former mercenary and a priestess might secure the child prophesied to reunite the 5 republics. My joints ached. What was the tripe my brother had said when he put her in my arms? You might have thought going through the chains early would save you from this, but you were wrong. That was the day after the Salon, on the eve of war. when I'd intended to share a few lines of poetry to a small group of friends and family. And instead, the god of fortune put a prophecy in my mouth in front of 2 luck-sworn warriors who just happened to be in custody of a 9-fingered child. If I could go back and uninvite him from the salon, I would. Not that it would have stopped the lion guard from showing up. Regardless, 48 winters was too old for a woman like me to have a child. As soon as there was a full breast to put her against, I'd be done with her. I owed his memory that much, but nothing more. 3. Let it be known that the child to bite the lion's mane will be luck's get, but owl sworn. We need to leave soon, I said, sketching out the latest movements of the Lion Guard patrols on our makeshift map. Shale looked back at me, Babe sleeping on her hip, but said nothing. She knew I was right. We'd spent weeks here. The Bagran jungles had given us time to heal amidst its wildness, time to let a facade of normalcy settle over us. But this time had always been stolen, and the increasing patrols on the once impassable mountainsides had come to collect. Soon we would be discovered. The Lion Guard didn't have a true hold here, not the way they did in Austria now, but our luck would have to end shortly, just like the Austrians did. I was sure of it. 2 days before we departed, Shale dedicated the babe to the owl goddesses. It was in the prophecy, so I approved, I supposed. I held the child during the ceremony. I mouthed the words that her infant lips couldn't say. I didn't think it would matter much, but afterward the goddesses brought us food. They dropped freshly killed rodents and monkeys outside our shelters for us to cook and eat. Like yesterday, they brought us a massive python carcass. The meat was tough and sinewy, but considering how difficult it had become to hunt without notice, we ate it. I would miss those last 2 evenings, despite myself. They had a certain peace to them, a domesticity. I soothed the child after she fed from the nanny goat while Shale did her best to season the goddess's offerings. That night, when the babe went down again, we climbed the summit to look east. There was only one else place we could go, the Akaran Waste. It stretched out before us in the moonlight, a sickly-looking lavender swath of vegetationless badlands. At least 4 calderas, long collapsed volcanoes littered the waste like lance boils. And against the horizon, the glittering tower of the god sorceress, Kante Fair. What if she won't let us in? Shale's voice was low, heavy with fear. What if she won't help us? I took her hand and squeezed. We don't have a choice. The god sorceress's reputation was dreaded enough to be spoken of in whispers even by the fierce hired swords I'd once called comrades. I understood the root of that dread. When the gods of each province were given the choice to either be present in the world with sensation and desires, but have their powers diminished, or retreat to the firmament and exert their influence only from afar. Far was the only god who chose the firmament. And during the day, the sorceress Kante guarded the waste from her tower, while Far watched through the sun-glazed lens of the sky. But at night, when Kante slept, Far puppeted her flesh. It puzzled me that Shale of all people would be so put off by Kante Far. After all, Shale was a priestess. But perhaps Gabila's divinity, spread out amongst the owl goddesses, was less off-putting than a single speaking deity sheathed in mortal flesh. I would hardly want Gabila to wear me like a suit of skin. But it was too late for such thoughts, and more so I hated to see the shadows that had stolen onto Shale's face. Come, I said. I think I heard the babe. It was a small lie, but worth it to banish the darkness there. 4. Let it be known that the child to sing our coming rise will earn Far's fickle favor despite herself. Halfway across the Austrian spit, that thin ravine between the waste and the Bagran jungle, the ground rumbled. I thought it was an avalanche and looked upward, but Shale drew my attention to the massive stampede of antelope in the ravine behind us, and past them, backlit by the moon, a trio of knights riding 6-legged estrich horses. The rampant lion fluttering in the breeze above the 3 knights filled me with a potent mix of indignation and fear. We'll never outrun them. Estrich's horses were legendary. The geography was unforgiving. We would have to leave the goat behind and scale the ravine. I strapped the infant to my back so that my arms would be free to climb. Mercifully, for once, she wasn't screaming. Luck might have been dead, but I still flicked a sacrificial coin into the dirt beneath us. We seized a gap in the herd to dash through to the ravine wall. I began to scale it. The handholds were treacherous and my boots hardly suited to the task. I was halfway up before I realized Shale wasn't behind me. She stood in the ravine, her spear a slash of silver in the moonlight, even as those three riders on their uncanny horses drew close and surrounded her. It didn't seem real. I couldn't watch and climb at the same time, so even though it burned, I continued to ascend, swearing with each scrap of height that I gained. Metal clashed below, and I could only picture Shale spinning and turning with her spear, deadly and elegant. A shout of pain made my whole body clench, but it was not Shale, so I kept climbing. The first noise I heard from her was not agony, it was rage, and so I pulled myself over the lip of the ravine and stood. I could still dare to hope that she had triumphed despite the odds. Hope died in my chest amidst the bones of 100 unsaid declarations. A pair of bodies laid still on the ground while the two remaining knights galloped away, one holding the reins of a riderless horse. Five. Let it be known that the child to bring the republics as one will not know the shadows, though the shadows cling to her. Dust in my mouth and my nose. My eyes burned, red rimmed and plagued by grit, chafing every step. The tower was not difficult, but it was uncomfortable, and the child did not fare as well. I thought her silence was wrought by good fortune, but it was fever. I couldn't stop. The tower bisected the sky and loomed over me, but did not seem to get closer, no matter how hard I pushed myself. I suspected sorcery. Had Shale sacrificed herself for nothing? The grit was everywhere. I had a blanket draped over the child's head, but still that silence filled me with dread. A child that would cry just to hear the sound of her own misery should not be silent. I've been trekking up and down miserable terrain for hours, and when only the last few drops remained in my water gourd, I saved it for the girl. Damn you, sorceress, I yelled, voice breaking. I seek sanctuary. Enough with these tricks. Perhaps she listened, or perhaps I should have trekked a few steps further before my tirade. The tower's base revealed itself after the next rise. Its construction appeared nearly seamless, as if the unmarred white stone of it had been poured from an eldritch volcano into an impossible mold. Circular windows made for occasional disruptions in the featureless expanse of it, and at the base, a massive iron door etched with symbols and sigils I'd never seen before. No clear manner of opening it. I stood before that door for an interminable amount of time, saying nothing, even as the sky darkened, even as the night began to fall. I knew there were plenty of things I could say, but who knew exactly what would appeal to the dreaded god sorceress? Instead, I waited her out, hopeful that curiosity would get the better of her. It was the child's, in the end, I reckon. She made a blessed noise, finally. I took her from my shoulders and held her, heart sore at her listlessness. I had no desire to be her or anyone else's mother, but we'd been through a lot. She knew me, and we had no one else but each other now. The door opened so silently I was almost struck by it. A silhouette stood in the arched threshold, flanked by columns and backlit by sconce torches. That's her, isn't it? Bring her to me, please. It's almost nightfall. I hesitated, simply out of exhaustion, but Conte stepped forward to take her from me. She was even taller than I was, an easy 6 feet. What a wonder she is, the god sorceress marveled. My stomach clenched. Shale was gone, but at least the gods still had their prophecy. Someone else took hold of my arm and I startled. I hadn't even noticed anyone else was there. A wan woman smiled up at me with kind eyes. She must have been about my age. Come along, she said. You'll be thirsty. Yes, Conte said. Mind Tabitha. She'll get you settled. I'm right behind you with this precious, precious girl. I followed instructions. We entered, and the door closed silently behind us. I looked for gears or other machinery, but saw none. We stepped onto a massive silver medallion set into the floor, and our hair fluttered in a skylight updraft as it rose into the air. Tabitha gently tugged me upright so I didn't lose my head to a collision. Let me get this child fed, the god sorceress said, stepping off the medallion to abandon us at a floor marked with a warm amber glow. We had a goat, I said ineffectually, as the medallion rose again. I turned to Tabitha. Are you her butler? It certainly feels like it some days, she smiled. She brought me upward yet further. We stepped off the medallion amidst a partition into a glittering wonder. While it must have been only one of the tower's many guest rooms, it seemed more grandiose than anything I had ever seen. Appointments constructed from crystal beckoned and molded into unnatural shapes, a side table, a footstool, an immense dresser cradling an enormous mirror. More importantly, a wash basin. After putting down my things, scant as they are, and wiping off the waste, the grit, Tabitha brought me back to that amber-lit room where we found Conte gently rocking the baby. A low growl emerged from a dark corner when I approached until a massive wolfhound's gray eyes regarded me mercilessly. 3 puppies gorging themselves in her swollen teats. Conte offered up the baby to me and waggled her finger at the canine. Just because you fed her once doesn't make her yours. I took her as Conte and Tabitha went about the business of setting out some dishes of food along cool steins of some delicious tart ale. I was happy to let them entertain. In fits and starts, I told them of what Shale and I had set out to do. Alliston fell, I started to say, but my words abandoned me. Too fast, Conte said. Tabitha made a rebuking noise in her throat. They couldn't have known what would happen when the estrage changed the umbra. The god sorceress finally amended. I nodded, finally pleased to be spared that small part of the story. The other terrible details emerged from my numb mouth slowly in a bedraggled litany of horrors. We'll look after the child, of course, Conte said when I'd finished. There are frustratingly few pieces that I can move in this game, but keeping this one safe is well within my means. No one's been able to find the tower without my permission yet. Was it strange that my first thought was to refuse her? It surprised me. But it seemed my appetite emerged in full after sharing the news, and I fell upon the breads and dips that they had prepared for me. This is what I wanted, I told myself. Conte could keep the girl safer than I ever could. I repeated it to myself as I ate until it started to feel real. My hunger sated and my main purpose fulfilled, I felt a weariness rise up in me that I'd been denying. We'll discuss the babe's future in the morning. It was a question. I had to acknowledge the debt I should hold towards them. Of course, Conte said, a gracious host. And the child, will I keep her with me tonight? We have the perfect room for her. She looked at Tabitha. The ocean room? Yes? Tabitha nodded in agreement. Should I say no? Keep her with me for one more night? This will be her home now. I swallowed my regrets and nodded. I'm sure that's fine. If she gives you trouble, please wake me. We're quite used to each other. Later, I laid in bed motionless for an hour or two, but despite my weariness, sleep eluded me. When was the last time I'd slept alone? I wasn't sure I remembered how. I stood next to the circular home on the floor until the medallion descended from somewhere above. I needed to be in the fresh air. Take me to the top? The roof, perhaps? The medallion did not reply, but it ascended nonetheless. The other rooms I saw in my ascent tantalized my curiosity. A bathing room filled with steaming pools, a garden room bursting with fruit-bearing vines, a room featureless but for a stunning mosaic that hung suspended in the air. 3 others filled with bookcases, tables sprawling with texts. When the medallion stopped and the cool night air meant we'd arrived, I took a step onto solid ground and exhaled noisily. The medallion retreated downward. Here on the tower's crown, I stood within a small copse of birch, white barked and branches bare for the season. Stone benches made from the same material as the tower itself rested here and there amidst the pale trunks. I knelt and touched the ground. The soil the trees grew from was rich and loamy. I couldn't imagine how it had gotten here, but neither could I imagine anything else, so I tried to not let it trouble me. To my right stood a peculiar construction of stone, like a sculpture's impression of a mountain surrounding a small amphitheater, with a half-dozen seats carved into the rock. To my left, the walls became two wide sweeping petals that rose up before curving back to frame a scrap of sky, where the moon held court over a smudge of rose preceding the rising sun. I stared at the smudge as the light grew stronger. Shale would have called it brooding, but she was hardly here to say anything. Who are you? Is this creature yours? It smells. I turned to find the god sorceress behind me. She held the child as one would hold a rabid animal, as if afraid of her, like she'd never seen her before in her life. I knew then this wasn't Kante, but the god riding her like a mare. I'm Karis. You were holding the babe of the prophecy. Far's expression didn't change. They seemed likely to repeat their complaints, but some sense or other premonition made them cock their head. My sister comes, Far said. Your sister? Far pointed over my shoulder towards the moon. The white disk was obliterated by a winged silhouette as Gabalus soared overhead and alighted on a mountain sculpture, depositing the gift she'd carried in her claws. Come, Far said. I followed, if only to make sure that they didn't drop the child. As they approached, they spoke to the owl goddess in a tongue that seemed equal parts screeching and gibbering. The child laughed and burped throughout the recitation as if it were a speech intended only for her. At first, I thought the owl goddess had brought me a sack of cloth, but as the smudge of light pinkened and colored the air, I saw it was shale she held in her claws. A knife twisted in my chest. Was I to bury her? But her breath rose and fell, shuddering. I gasped and went towards her, giving the owl goddess less birth than I should. You must pay a price, Var said. Perhaps I should have balked, but I couldn't anything, I said. I didn't cry out when the owl bit off the first two knuckles of the little finger of my left hand. Pain seared through me, but no blood was shed, as if the owl goddess's beak had cauterized the wound. I clutched the priestess's broken body to my chest, and Kante returned to herself. She called for Tabitha, and together we got Shale into the tower. 6. Let it be known that the child to bring the republics as one will find her first ally in Ice-Veins' shattered heart. From here she will rise. Shale nearly died again and again. Then she did not. I owed it entirely to Tabitha and her sleepless care. The line guards had left Shale with infected wounds, a punctured lung. Kante cared for the child while her not butler and I became nursemaids. I followed Tabitha's instruction, mashing herbs into powder and boiling water for endless tinctures, though whatever healing she enacted could not be from herbalism alone. And once death had been warded off, Shale entered a healing sleep, and Tabitha and I spent weeks at her sickbed. We took up playing stones and talking, politics of yore, philosophy, the wonders surrounding the god sorceress. It was only a month that I'd been in the tower before I noticed that she cast no shadow. We sipped tea by candlelight, but even when her hand was in front of the flame, it didn't change the light that it cast upon her. It rendered me speechless. I was hardly the most observant, but surely this should have caught my eye. You're not a butler. The words fled my mouth without decorum. And you're not some happenstance lover of Kante's. Tabitha sipped her tea. I thought it was time you knew. I collected my thoughts. The stories were unequivocal. You're an umbral queen, I finally said. Your Majesty, I mean. My inanity astounded me. How did one mistake royalty for a servant for months? But Tabitha waved off the sudden concern with titles. I have little to rule right now. Estrich has held Ice-Vein now for years. It was true. Ice-Vein had been the first province to fall. The umbra had been particularly susceptible to the lion guard's cruel radiance. Far offered me sanctuary when I had nothing, time to plan, time to recover. I ignored them for too long. When I was the only queen left, when everything was in tatters, I claimed sanctuary. Tabitha's eyes met mine. What I found with Conte was unexpected. Aside from that comfort, this has been time poorly spent, especially considering what scant planning I'd done until you came here. What do you mean? I asked. My people stand ready to act, but they need a general, one predicted by prophecy. It'll be years yet until the babe is old enough to be a general worth speaking of. Tabitha barked a laugh. Karis, I'm not talking about the child. Shale chose that moment to cough and sit up. We rushed to her side, my heart soaring. As soon as she sipped at some water, her eyes shining with feverish lucidity, she asked me, will you do it? Let the prophecy be about you? How long were you listening? I asked, unreasonably annoyed. Lay back down, please. Tabitha and I coaxed Shale to sit back. It was so hard to let go of her hand. She needed to conserve her strength. I banished the question with the industry of tending to her, even as I let the uttering of it careen through my thoughts. I didn't see it, not at first, but the lines of the prophecy ran through my mind over and over again. A heaving nervousness built in my stomach. The more I thought about it, the sicker I felt. Damn the gods, I thought to myself. Damn every single one of them. A few days later, when it was just the two of us, Shale asked again, Karis, you never answered. Will you do it? Her eyes were an ocean. The waves felt like home, even if they left me unsteady on my feet. I decided that I wanted whatever future would keep making Shale look at me the way she did right then. This new interpretation was foolish, wasn't it? But would it hurt if I let it appear that I was part of the prophecy, even if it was all a bunch of nothing? I looked away from Shale's eyes, fixed on a candle's flickering glow. I looked back at her and asked, knowing full well the answer. What's the last line again? She recited it to me, haltingly. Let it be known that the child to bring the republics as one will find her first ally in Ice-Vein's shattered heart. From here she will rise. Shattered heart indeed. Ice-Vein was hundreds of miles away. The coldest thing I'd ever felt in Austria was a strong breeze. But an army was reforming there, Tabitha said, an army awaiting a general. Will you go? Shale asked me again. Her fingers at my elbow brought me back to that room. Will you lead the Umbral army? Her dark complexion was still wan and sallow from her ordeal. My heart hung sore and aching in my throat. Will you come with me when you're back on your feet? I don't know if I can do it without you. Without you, there is no tomorrow, Shale said. And my own prophecy in her throat unlocked something precious and new in my heart. Had she known all along that, yes, it didn't matter. Purpose ran through me. I'll do it. A languid satisfaction moved across Shale's face. She gestured imperiously with her chin at the small space over her shoulder. Then lie with me, Karis Alm's daughter. I would have your prophesied arms around me. I clambered over Shale with care and settled behind her. This felt precious and right enough to convince me that perhaps the Republics wouldn't be the only one to have a second chance. And that's the end.
That was awesome too. Thank you so much. And in a half an hour, that felt like epically sort of dense. It was really a great arc. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
J.A.W. and Dave Ring, a really wonderful story. Thank you both for reading with us, and you're both welcome back anytime. I also want to thank my co-host, Laura Blackwell, Cliff Winnig, and all of you out there for coming back every week to make this work. Next week, we've got Izzy Wasserstein and Wole Talibi. Well, see you next time.